What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Stephen Thompson, coming at you with another Inside Pitt post-game report from a new location. I'm in Washington, D.C. at my parents' home. I'm actually in, a room just off of where the bedroom I grew up sleeping in, which, was always fun. It's weird, interesting, but, got to cover a game and, write and deliver this post-game report from the same room that my brother and I grew up playing Legos in when we were kids and doing a bunch of other stupid stuff. But so is holiday travel. So while the team was in Brooklyn, I was here in DC tracking as best I can, watching the game and you know delivering some of my thoughts on what happened. I mean, because this was a pretty ugly loss. I mean, you can look up and down the stat sheet. The Panthers didn't shoot well, didn't think they defended well, didn't think they matched the physical challenge that the Gators posed to them. And, there's a lot to break down, but we'll dive right into it. And I think that last part that I mentioned is kind of the most important part of it, is that Pitt kind of wilted in the face of a real physical challenge. We've seen them be the aggressor so often this season. We've seen them be the team that is bigger, faster, stronger, uses those advantages to break out big leads and to run up the scores on inferior teams. And Florida kind of gave Pitt a dose of their own medicine in this game. Florida's got a ton of size and they're certainly talented, but they really use that size, and that size coupled with some experience. I mean, it's a transfer-laden team. They're certainly not as young as Pitt is, and I think they exposed that a little bit at certain times. I mean, Pitt, for all they did wrong, led this game for the vast majority of the first half. I want to say up until the final media timeout. So, about 15 minutes of lead time. There was a bunch of time that it was tied, but the Panthers were really in control for much of that first half. And then, Blake Hinson commits a bad turnover. Then Bub Carrington commits a bad turnover as well. Both those lead to buckets. And they go from up 3, I believe, to down 8 or down 5 going into halftime in about the blink of an eye, before they can even really recover, really kind of get a handle on things. And you just saw kind of the residual effect of Florida's guards in particular, I thought, but even their bigs, being really physical with Pitt in a way that certainly they hadn't seen before, and that certainly knocked them off of their game. I think particularly you could see it when Carrington was handling the ball, coming off of ball screens. Florida hedged really hard on those and got physical with him, gave him, bumps with the body. They just and their length, I thought, disrupted a lot of the passing lanes that Carrington felt like he could normally see. And hit Fetty off of a roll, hit Blake or one of the twins off of a roll. Those looks just weren't there, and Carrington looked, not only overwhelmed physically, but I think that physical challenge also resulted in him looking maybe mentally overwhelmed. Just the decision making I thought was not great from a kid who has pretty remarkably been a fantastic decision maker for the Panthers throughout the course of this season. You also got almost nothing, I felt like, from the bigs. I mean, you look at Jorge, Guillermo, and Betty. Sorry, I apologize. I'm looking at the stats kind of on another screen while I record this, but combined 7 points. They only made one field goal between the three of them. It came from Guillermo. It was 3. Uh, Combined 1 of 6. Fetty didn't even attempt a field goal. And then only 12 rebounds between the three. I mean, in a game like this, and I mean, I think I talked about it on my last video when we tried to preview this game a little bit, but I thought the Twins would be an X factor, and this game X equaled not a whole lot. And Fetty got into some foul trouble, like I thought he might have at some point in this game, and the Twins were not really able to pick up the slack, and that's not to take away from Federico. I mean, he had his own issues in this game as well, but just the overall contributions from the front court were not good enough, especially, like I said, when you're facing this physical of a team. You need your bigs to be good. You need your 7-footers, your 6'11" and 6'10" guys to be able to match up with their 6'11" and 6'10" guys and 7-footers. And Pitt really just wasn't able to do that, and I think the added weight that all those guys have, Fetty's strength didn't really, and his better improved touch, I feel like, around the rim that we thought we had seen the first few games, it just didn't really show up in this one. And that's not to say it won't ever the rest of the season, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But for one night, it just didn't show up. Even I mean, it was up and down the lineup too. I mean, we talked about Carrington and the bigs, but I mean, I thought Blake ish. I thought stood up to it pretty well, but Blake, wasn't able to use his size in the way that I thought he could have or has been able to. And overall, I think the physicality just made everyone on the team rush a little bit. And Jeff Capel addressed that in his post game, but he just thought that the physicality threw Pitt off of their game and made it hard for them to recover in those situations, recover and execute and do all of the little things that they had done so well in the first 4 games. The physicality knocked them out. And it was kind of a grinding physicality. I think Pitt was really game for that level of play in the first half, especially through the first, 15 minutes, like I mentioned. But you could see the body blows start to pile up. I mean, you could see it most clearly, I thought, in the free throw shooting. I mean, you compare it half to half, and the Panthers shot 83% from the line in the first half and 53% from the line in the second half. It doesn't show up as much in the regular shooting numbers, but I thought there were clearly some tired legs. I mean, I think it also showed up in the turnovers. I mean, 5 in the first half, 9 in the second. That's easily a season high. They went in averaging 8.8 turnovers per game on the season. 14 obviously smokes that. So you could just see the kind of physical toll that Florida exacted on them. And then they, once they broke through in the second half, I believe there was a pretty lengthy run in the second period. Yeah, there was a 12-2 run, real early in the second half, spanning the 13-minute mark and the 9:52 mark of the first half, in which Florida just really broke it open. Helped to get some shots at the line. They got 3 free throws during that run, but they also got 4 points off of fast breaks. So, I mean, you can even extend this run and make it that would be a 17-5 run, going back to the 15-18 mark, all the way back to that, all the way down to the 8:32 mark. Yeah, where they just outran Pitt, and Pitt just wasn't able to keep up physically. They looked tired, and that just played into everything from their shooting form to their decision making to their ability to grab rebounds to and then defend, obviously, on the other end. So just all kind of trickled down from their inability to withstand the body blows that Florida kept throwing at them. Um, Moving down the list of things that didn't go very well. I mean, Pitt didn't get anything really at all from their bench. Like I said, I mean, the Diaz Graham twins didn't give you much. Will Jeffress hit a 3 his first of the year. He was fine, but just didn't play very much. I thought, he had a chance to maybe make an impact defensively. I mean, Walter Clayton was going off for the Gators. Leggett was, I think, doing what he could, but thought some length might have fit better. Maybe affected some of the 3-point shots that he was making. I mean, he shot 6 of 8 from 3, and I thought, there's a chance that maybe you could put, Zach Austin or a guy like Jeffress on him, and maybe that could at least affect his 3-point shot, or at least make him, second guess it a little bit and think before throwing those shots in the air. But the 4 bench players who got in, they combined for just 11 points. They didn't do it efficiently either. They only made 3 field goals out of 12 attempts. Not very good. 2 threes out of, it's hard, 7. So it was just, there was really nothing to grab onto from the bench. And on a night where your stars, Hinson, Leggett, Carrington, all those guys reached double figures, but they didn't do it efficiently at all. I believe they shot a combined 36% from the field. You need the bench, and you need the bench to be able to not necessarily, I think, create offense off the bounce or like make their own shots in the same way that those stars do, but They have to be able to give you something off of those guys. They have to make themselves available. They have to move without the basketball. They have to hit open shots. They didn't really do any of that. And then they also got, defend and play in transition. I thought that was a way Pitt got really easy buckets, and that's a way that they stayed really balanced offensively in a pretty easy way through the first 4 games. And man, the bench wasn't able to do anything. I mean, it wasn't just the bench, but I mean the whole team. But you noticed it most glaringly with the bench units was that there was just no movement. They weren't crisp at all. They didn't move without the ball, like I said. They didn't swing the ball at all. I think Jeff Capel mentioned this in his post game that the physicality, in addition to kind of wearing them down on both ends, but it also uh, made these guys think that they needed hero ball, that they needed to go isolation, that they needed to have someone just step up and make a play through brute force. And it's not really how you beat a team that's beating you physically, quite honestly. I mean, it's not that you have to go around them, but you have to play as a team to beat a team that uh, is going to lock in on you individually. Like if you go at a team individually, you're gonna have 5 guys who are hacking at you. At you're 3 guys at least who are hacking at you. You try to drive in, you're taking blows from the guy who's defending you, a guy who's coming on off a help defense, and then finally at the rim, you're gonna meet a shot blocker there. You move the ball, you create some easier looks, you kind of limit the ability of the defense to hone in on one guy, and you maybe create some easier looks that also take away from those body blows that you were suffering. Like I said, were so crucial down the stretch. And to that same end, kind of bouncing off of that, it was way too easy for Florida to take those big time scorers out of the game, and that comes off, like I said, Carrington, Leggett, Hinson, those guys got theirs. They got to double figures, but um, you know, there was really no um, efficiency with it. There was no, fluidity to it, and they really had to force to get enough shots up to get those scoring numbers up. And part of that comes from the fact that the bench didn't really give you anything, but those guys have to be good decision makers, and they have to know when the offense dictates for certain things, and they have to know how to get other guys involved instead of just kind of locking in on I need to make a play right now. I need to get us out of this situation. Thought the shot selection wasn't very good for most of the game, and that kind of starts with the guys who are taking the most shots. I mean, Hinson took 15 shots, Leggett took 20, Carrington took 15. No one else even came close to attempting that many field goals. No one even came close to attempting double digits. I mean, Zach Austin was the next closest with 6. Oh, when those guys are taking up the vast majority of the shots in the offense, they're going to kind of earn the blame for when that offense becomes one dimensional, when it becomes stagnant, and when it ultimately isn't enough to win a game. And I say all that, and they still scored 71 points. I mean, against a defense that I believe when I checked a couple minutes ago is ranked in the top 50 of efficiency in KenPom. So, that kind of leads me into my second point is that this loss doesn't really have to define them. You saw it most plainly last year when they got blown out by Michigan. They dropped one to VCU that they probably shouldn't have. Um, but the Panthers, all of their mistakes are fixable, I think. I think, and I think it's logical to expect them to listen or to learn from this game. I mean, Carlton Carrington absolutely need to see this kind of physicality to move on in his career, to advance in his career. The same thing's true for Jalen Lowe. I think the same thing is true for the Twins. For as much as they saw some of it last year, they needed to see how their new weight kind of stacked up against guys who are just as big as them. I mean, just this team as a whole, I think, just needed to get punched in the mouth, quite frankly. And I mean, I don't think it's I don't think it's reasonable to look at this as a disaster, especially after what happened last year, like I pointed out. But there's so much season to play, and you know, I just didn't look at this game and think there are structural flaws in this Pitt team. You know, I don't think that they were overwhelmed talent wise. while I do think they were overwhelmed physically, I don't think that had anything to do with their bodies per se. I don't think that had anything to do with their physical makeup as a team. I think they have strength. I think they have guys who can stand up physically, but it's a little bit of an attitude thing where you just got to see it to know what it takes to respond to it. You have to play 40 minutes against it to know what it takes to sustain it for 40 minutes. So I think those, and then at the end of the day, it's just having the kind of mental fortitude to withstand those hits and then make the right basketball plays while you're taking those hits. So there's a lot to learn, and I feel like they saw a lot of what they needed to see, and they'll be able to review it on film, come back, and be much stronger the next time. So I thought everything they did wrong was pretty fixable in this game, and there's no reason why they can't come out against Oregon State on Friday and completely turn things around. Look like the team that we saw beat up on 4 mid majors in the first 2 weeks of the season, and kind of get things back on track. The other thing is Florida might just be pretty good, and they might have lost to a good team, and so while it look ugly, I think you can like kind of live with this. That said, you can only live with it if they actually respond to the loss. If they actually find some ways to make improvements and really come back stronger. If this stuff starts to become a pattern, then you can start to worry about, okay, where's the rest of the offense going to come from? Is the bench deep enough? Are they actually as good defensively as we thought they were? Did we buy into the hype too early after they beat up on 4 mid majors? We can talk about that later. But I think for right now, if you're a fan or observer, any kind of person wanting to do any kind of analysis on this, I guess my advice would be just to compartmentalize, bottle up this loss. It's one data point. And we'll get a lot more throughout the season. We'll get another one coming up soon. And we're going to learn more about this team as they're learning more about themselves. So uh, that's kind of my analysis of the game. I mean, one more note, congrats to Ish Leggett, surpassed 1,000 career points tonight. That's big time. He's been really steady this year. Just about every sense, I feel like he's gone underrated, but he's been huge on both ends as a scorer, a guy who can go get them a bucket at really desperate moments, and then play some big time defense on good guards. That's going to prove really valuable this season. And Leggett, who a guy I called him, I guess, underrated, but I think that's more projecting from me. I don't know if that's the right word, but I didn't think he was going to be the biggest impact addition that the Panthers had this season. And I'd argue so far it's like him and Carrington are up there as far as big impact additions, right on the same level. So congrats to Ish. And we'll see how he tops 1,000 points, how he keeps moving past 1,000 points, how many points he can add on top of that. But with that, I'm headed out of here. Thank you so much for tuning into another Inside Pitt post-game report. Appreciate all of you who are tuning in on this Thanksgiving Day to recap the Panthers' loss. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving and a good holiday weekend, and hope you'll stick with me. There's still another football game and a basketball game to get through as we kind of march through this holiday weekend, a working weekend for some of us. But I appreciate you all tuning in, like I said, and I hope you like this video. So make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. That's youtube.com/inside the Panthers. Then find some more reporting from this weekend. Like I mentioned, still a lot to go towards the as we wrap up this holiday weekend at insidethepanthers.com. Appreciate you all tuning in, and I'll see you next time.